Hello and welcome to this e-learning course on technology action plans, which is the last deliverable within the TNA process. Our aim with these presentations is to walk you through the various steps in developing a technology action plan for implementation in your country. Briefly, the overall contents of these videos is as follows. Firstly, a video with introduction and a statement of ambition for the technology in question. Secondly, how to identify the specific actions and activities for each TAP. Thirdly, a video that will help explain how to identify stakeholders and to determine timelines. In other words, who is responsible and within what time frame should it be completed. Fourth video determines the capacity needs as well as costs and funding requirements to implement the TAP. And finally, a fifth video to cover management planning, the basics of project management, risks and considerations when implementing the TAP itself, and also an explanation of what are project ideas or project concepts and how the TAPs relate to the project ideas. As with all the other e-learning videos we've created, the underlying information and guidance documents for the TAP is available on our project website here, techaction.org, and you're welcome to access that and also download specific country deliverables from the previous phase as well as ongoing countries. So with this e-learning guidance on technology action plans, we're really doing a summary of the revised guidance note for TAPs, which was developed by UNEP DTU Partnership in collaboration with the UNFCCC and builds upon feedback that we received from countries in the previous phase on how to improve guidance for technology action plans. But broadly speaking, the technology action plans themselves are a summary and synthesis of the work already completed under the first two steps of the TNA, the technology prioritization and the barrier analysis and enabling frameworks, i.e. the analysis of the markets for each technology. And it's a way of summarizing and synthesizing those conclusions and repackaging them as an action plan. We do have a reporting template, but for these presentations we'll focus on a summary table, which basically is the core inputs to the TAP, and we'll use that as the basis for explaining how to complete a TAP. So by now you'll be very familiar with these three steps in the TNA project. The first two steps have been completed by now. Step one is the prioritization. Step two is the barrier analysis and enabling framework. And finally, we are here now at step three for the technology action plan. So just to remind ourselves where we are in the overall process. So what is a TAP? A formal definition could be this: that a TAP is a concise plan for the transfer or diffusion of the prioritized technologies that will contribute to the country's overall development plans, environmental and economic development, as well as, of course, mitigate or adapt to the impacts of climate change. The scale can be large and large-scale diffusion of technologies where we focus on creating or improving market conditions for the diffusion of market technologies. It can also be focused on single technologies where we're looking at demonstration projects, and they're also consideration for the complementarities between certain technologies. So a TAP may cover more than one technology where there are logical overlaps. Taking, for example, bus rapid transport systems and as an urban technology, mitigation technology, it makes sense to also consider pedestrianization and cycle paths as part of that technology action plan. So why are we doing TAPs? What is the purpose here? Well, as I mentioned already, the idea is to translate the conclusions or findings from the prioritization and the barrier analysis and enabling framework reports into implementable actions. And they must, as with the rest of the project, always be in line with and/or support national development plans. So everything is in line, there's no contradictions here. We're going in the same direction. In that sense, we're building a bridge between national climate change policies and the sector-specific development plans, which each country has. And finally, the important aspect of funding, how to finance these action plans and how to implement them. This is, of course, of fundamental importance so that we move from just producing reports to actions on the ground. Another way of visualizing the TAP within the whole project cycle, and it's in the bigger picture, is as a kind of keystone between the analysis that we've done previously in steps 1 and 2 on prioritization and the barriers and enablers for each technology, towards implementation, where we're going towards the scale-up, i.e. investment in technologies to diffuse these throughout the markets in the countries. I think when you write any report or do any analysis, it's important to understand and identify who is the audience and what do they need to know. So when we're thinking of technology action plans, the audience is really anyone that can influence in some way policy making. Often we hear about policy makers, but in reality the making of policy is a very sort of convoluted and contested process. So where there's a battle of ideas and influence, both intellectual and political. So we want to target all national stakeholders that have a voice in this process. And importantly, that's the civil society sector as well as public institutions and private sector, technology developers as well as investors who have potentially very important role in changing consumption production patterns within countries. And of course, international funding institutions which may pick up some of the project ideas that the TAPs will hopefully lead to. In terms of the content of a TAP, they need to be kept short, really. Less is more. And this is mainly because the people we aim to influence with the technology action plans are often very busy and have competing interests and agendas, so their attention spans are limited, basically. So we need to come up with a sort of summary information, but is nonetheless very comprehensive. And importantly, that it can be presented as a standalone document that you can present to these individuals and organizations. And it's not something that has to be read in addition to the other reports. So it's based upon but independent from the rest of the TNA process. A brief schematic here to visualize the 5 different steps in developing a technology action plan, which is what we will talk about in these e-learning videos. We're here now at step 1, where we're looking at the ambition for a technology action plan. And that's just a simple statement of what you hope to do and what level. This is followed by an articulation of the actions and activities for each of the technologies, and then the stakeholders and timelines, who and when, estimated resources that are required, and finally the basics of management planning. So at the end of the day, we need to know, what is it that we want, how much will it cost, where will we get the money from, who will drive it forward, and within what time frame. These are the basic considerations that we need to make clear in a technology action plan. So when it comes to ambition, again, very simple, straightforward. This information will already have been articulated in earlier stages of the process. So you're effectively taking that information and putting it in a new format, a new sort of template, if you like. We take the example here of small-scale hydropower, hydroelectric electricity. The ambition here is to finance up to 20 projects of various sizes with a total installed production generating capacity of 120 megawatts, producing X number of gigawatts per year. So that is the stated sector, technology, and scale of ambition. Very simple, very straightforward. That's the first step. And now to put that in the perspective of the TAP as a whole, we have these 5 steps. So we've covered now step 1, the sector, subsector, and ambition. This is the orange bar at the top you'll see, we'll go through this in the following videos. The second step, the actions and activities that we want to implement. Third step is the responsible bodies, i.e. the who, and the time frame, the when. Fourth step is the sources of funding and the resource requirements. And then finally, the fifth step is the risks involved in supporting this technology, and the success criteria and indicators for monitoring progress. And that once you've filled out all of these boxes, basically these columns in the summary table, this is basically your TAP. And this information is already available in the previous analysis. And with that last slide, we complete the first presentation in the e-learning for technology action plans.